doing? I hope you're well. Thank you very much for joining us on a very sunny afternoon. I'm surprised you've chosen to come and join me for an hour rather than sit in the sun, so I appreciate that. We've got a few people joining in the background, so we're just going to give them all a minute or two to get connected. Hopefully some of you are sat in your gardens. That'd be nice. I'm sure most of you are sat in the office, but we'll see. Right, okay, so let's get underway then. So thank you very much for joining us, as I say. Really appreciate your time, and obviously this is one of a number of webinars that we're going to do around kind of tiny little tips and tricks that we can use inside the Microsoft 365 environment just to speed up and boost a bit of productivity. Now, we're going to go through sort of 15, 20 small bits and pieces that we can do across a few different platforms. But obviously, there's so many things. We've chosen 3 particular applications to focus on in today's session. I'm always happy to have conversations with people about things that we can do in other applications. Just reach out to us and let us know. But today, we're going to focus on Word, Outlook, and Teams. And again, some of the things that we talk about, you might already have awareness of, but we sort of pitch this at a level where we plan to sort of build over time and get a bit more complex as we go on. So hopefully you'll keep joining me for these. But I am hoping there's a few bits in here today that are new and maybe you've seen, but you don't quite know what they do. So we're going to go through a couple of videos that we've done, show you how some of these tools work and some of these buttons and what that part of Word does, etc., etc. We're also going to explore just where do you find out more information, where can you go to get a bit more visibility of some of these kind of hacks and tips and tricks, as we call them. And then we've got some time for some questions at the end. So, and I'll try and answer them as much as I can. So we will kick off with Microsoft Word. Okay, we've broken these things down into the concept of designing in Word and reviewing and sort of collaborating in Word, right? So lots of people will use Microsoft Word for laying out a document, a PDF, they'll put pictures and images in. But also really fundamentally, it's a document word processing system. It's used to write words, to review that, to collaborate, to track changes, all those bits and pieces. And I'm sure many of you will have used those features. So one thing that always comes up though is templating. Okay, something that that lots of organizations obviously would love to do, but never really know how to do properly. So what we end up with is an environment where you open up a Word document, you know, let's say you've got a new quote, and what happens is you kind of open a quote that you made a couple of weeks ago because it's got the company branding on it, it's got the logo on it, and you start to make changes on the old copy and then save it as a new version or save it with a new name. That tends to be the way lots of organizations work. Now, that's great, but in the new modern Microsoft 365 world, for those of you that are familiar with the concept of autosave, when you open up a document with autosave and you start writing over it, it actually makes those changes back to the original document. So you end up overwriting your template all the time. So what we need is a document that's considered a template, and actually it can't make changes, you can't edit it, but ultimately it streams up. Now, normally, if you want to do this company-wide, you'd probably approach your IT department, but there is a way of doing that for yourself and for your own personal stuff. So let's have a little look at how we do that. This is a quote that we've created. And what I'm going to do is going to make some changes. I'm going to make a branding behind it. So I've gone into the styles and I'm creating a new style here. And I'm creating something called header 1. Now, what I would like to do is obviously highlight and make changes and make the headings inside my document conform to our company brand. So I create a header. I'm going to modify that. I'm going to put it in our company fonts. I'm going to change the size of it for this particular heading, choose maybe our company color. And I'm going to go okay. And great thing straight away for those of you that are new to styles, the great thing about style is it allows us to go and find other parts of our document and just apply the same formatting style to it. So we've got consistency through our document. Okay, now it may be that this quote hasn't really got anything in it, it's just an empty sort of Word document as it stands at the moment, but I want to make those changes and use this as a template when I do quotes in the future. So I'm going to go and change the language on it. Always a great thing to do on a template. Make sure that it's in UK potentially. And then when we go and save it, there's a slight tweak in what we do. Here, I can save it as a docx file. That's a traditional Word document. But what I'm looking for is this option for Word template. And you'll see, very importantly at the top, the location for it is in Documents, Custom Office Templates. That's actually on your machine. That document, now it's saved, is a template, okay? And when I go to New, and I go to Personal there, you can see that I get options for all the templates that I've created. So when I create a new document from that template, I've got a completely brand new document that I'm going to work on. I can jump in there. I can start to make some changes. So if I throw some items in this quote here and I type away, the giveaway that this isn't the original document is the name of it. At the very top of the screen, it says document 1. And if I click on that, you can see that when I change its name and I hit save in a moment, it's going to save it. So we'll call it quote for customer X. It's going to save it in my OneDrive. Okay. And when I hit save, I can share it. I can apply sensitivity to it. But when I hit save, it creates a new version of that document based on the template that I started with. And of course, I can sit there and I can customize that template and lay it out however I like. Maybe it's not, doesn't need to be a quote. It needs to be a response, a proposal, a piece of collateral that we're working on. But anything where there's 80% of the document is the same all the time, and turn it into a template, okay, and save that and pop it into your local templates area. Now we've got lots of these tips to go through, so you can see the pace at which we're going to do it. Don't worry if that was a bit too quick, because we're going to share this video with you. You can always come back and take a look at it and slow it down. Really, our aim here is just throw lots of things at you. Hopefully something grabs your interest, okay? So using styles, using headers, and creating templates, all right? First thing, lots of you probably may already know how to do that. The next thing is formulas. So did you know there is an ability within Microsoft Word to take some Excel functionality? Okay, so let's go back to our quote. I've created a quote here, and I've put some lines in it. So we're selling one item of a quantity of 4 at £3 each, and that equals £12, okay? But we've got another line there, and I've got 3 items at £15 each. And what I want to do is, rather than add that up, I want to add a formula. So if we go up to our table design area and we step into layout, on the right hand side, you'll see formula. Now, when you times 2 numbers together, you need to type in a particular code here, so that's a product. When you times it together, you get product. So we're going to do product, and then in brackets, we're going to type left. And that means times the 2 cells in the table on the left. Bang, it's done £45 for me. Brilliant. Don't need to add that up. Super. Now I want to subtotal it. Well, now I'm going to sum all the cells above. Bang, it's done that again for me. Fantastic. But the catch is, if I change a quantity or I change a value, unlike Excel, it's not going to automatically update for me, okay? I have to go in, right-click on the field and update the field to get that to work. So not quite as good as Excel in that sense, but actually, if you just need to quickly add something together, if you want to do a quick formula, and these are pretty basic formulas, they can get way more complex. You can go off and explore in that. But certainly, if you're working in the finance team, if numbers are involved in your job, quite a handy thing when you're working in Word. Okay, so that's formulas. We've now got the idea of headers and navigation. Now, lots of people will use headers, and they kind of use it for the reason of styling. So similar to the first slide or the first video we showed you, how you can create branding, with a header, you actually get a lot more bang for your buck when you use this in more detail. So I've got a document here about Horatio Nelson. My father will be proud. I'm going to give it some headings. Okay, so I'm going to make the top bit heading 1. I'm going to make, maybe there's a sub part of my document that's got some relevant information that's related to the heading 1. So I'm going to make these things heading 2. All right, so I'm making this logical tree structure of my documents. Okay, so fantastic. Make Trafalgar heading 2. So we're talking through Nelson's life here. And that's great. I've now got a structure. I've got a main topic and sub-bits underneath it. Now, if you don't already know this, I'm sure many of you do, you can create a table of contents. Okay, you do that by popping over the references and you click on table of contents. And what that will do is insert an automatic table of contents, all right, based on all of those headers that you just created. Brilliant, because if I write a really long document, I can update my table of contents and all the page numbers will be automatically dynamically updated for me. Very, very handy when we've got a 40, 50 page document. But one other thing people sometimes don't realize is that when you go to navigation there, you will see all those headers and you can jump around in the document much more easily than scrolling up and down, okay? More importantly, you can actually drag whole sections of your document around, So if you've actually been writing it, realize the structure's a bit wrong, if you've got all that content under a heading, you can just drag that entire block of content and move it up or move it down and reposition it, okay? So headings are not just about style, they're about structuring a document, structuring a Word document, and ending up with stuff that you can move around and a navigation pane. The other point to note is if you save this as a PDF document, for example, it will create hyperlinks automatically within that PDF document when you look at that table of contents, okay? You click on that and PDF document will scroll to the point of the document, okay? So again, probably something lots of you have used, but I appreciate some of you on this call might not be aware of it. So if you don't use it, definitely use it. Now, something that might be a bit new to everybody is this concept of something called Sway. Okay, so this is a new app. I say new, it's actually been around a while, but it's all about, or Microsoft deem it as a kind of digital storytelling application. It's baked into your Microsoft 365 environment. It's kind of halfway between Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint. But the idea is that we can take really static content and convert it into something a bit more interesting, a bit more fun. So we'll go back to our Nelson document that we had a moment ago. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to click on Transform. And what that does is it transforms my boring Word document into an interactive web page. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, maybe it's a design thing, okay? And we'll talk a bit about that in a moment. Now, you can see on the right-hand side, what happens is I get a bunch of different options around styles and layouts that might look great in this web page when I finally create it. Might want dark, I might want light. I'm going to choose that one. I'm going to choose Transform, and it's going to tell me there that it's going to go and take it off to Sway. So I click Transform, and what happens is it opens up a new web browser for me, and you can see there it's at sway.com. Please wait a moment while we make your Sway web page. So it's taking all that content from the Word document and it's creating this sort of rich looking web page. And as I scroll down, you can see the text pops out, there's images in there. It's basically a more entertaining, more engaging way of taking a look at my web page. The other big advantage here is that if I need to send this content to somebody, I appreciate most people have PDF readers nowadays, but they don't have to have a PDF reader. They don't have to have Microsoft Word. It's now baked into a web page, globally accessible. And you can see here that I can share it, and I can share it with just specific people in my organization. I can share it with anybody with a link. The link is the big URL you can see above it there. So sway.cloud.microsoft. Ultimately, that is now online, now available for people to access, okay? If I don't want everyone in the world accessing it, obviously I wouldn't share it with everybody. I'd share it with specific people. But I can also post this to social media places, okay? So we can take a really boring piece of text and just turn it into a web page that we can go out and publish about. Marketing, brilliant idea. Imagine if you're in a large organization, or a larger organization, I should say, that has company guiding, branding guidelines, etc. I imagine Sam, our marketing team, or who heads up our marketing, would probably get very upset with me if I did that. But in a smaller business or for personal uses or whatever, you just need to get some content out. Great way of engaging, okay? So Sway is new, and we were going to talk more about Sway as we go through these sessions. And we'll be exploring things like Planner and Sway and lots of other applications that you may or may not have heard of. I guess another thing that we all use is the clipboard, right? And I imagine that, again, a lot of you use the clipboard. You right-click and copy, you right-click and paste. Maybe you go Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. But if you're ever in a position where you copied something and then you go and copy something else and you kind of lose what you copied the first time, actually, there's a way around this, okay? You might not be aware. If I grab a bit of text in my Word document and I copy it, in the bottom right corner there, you'll see 1 of 24 in the clipboard. Okay, so that's great. But now if I go and copy something else, it overwrites my clipboard, doesn't it? Well, the truth is no, it doesn't. So if I go up to my little clipboard area, which you'll see in a second, we've now got 2 of 24, I've just copied something else. If I go up to my clipboard and I click that little arrow, you'll see that we actually store all of the pieces of content that I've copied. So I'm going to go and copy a few more bits, and you can see they're just building up inside my clipboard. So how do I reuse these? Because if I went Control-V, it would just paste the last thing that I copied. But if I use that, anything I click on will now just paste in the thing that was in my clipboard. Okay, so If I need to copy lots of things, great for things like numbers, where I've done some sums, I've copied some information, I've stuck it in there, and I need to times that number by something else, but I want to keep a track of all the things that I'm changing. Great for big blocks of text that I need to reuse in a document, maybe table layouts, all that sort of stuff. Maybe I want to highlight a whole page and recopy a page. All of that can get stored in the clipboard. You can have up to 24 things in there before it will start overwriting again. But a little unknown secret there. Lots of people think you can just copy once and copy and away you go, but actually just use the clipboard. So I guess another new thing is the immersive reader. If you are from the education side or you're working within the education industry, you're probably quite aware of the immersive reader. If you're not, absolutely look at it in the education side. In the business side of of life, it's more about accessibility actually for users. We've got some people that struggle to read things. So if we go to view an immersive reader, we can actually open our Nelson document up in something that's a bit easier to read. I can actually have it read to me if I go down and click on the play button at the bottom. But importantly, if I'm struggling, I'm getting old now, my eyes are going, okay, I'm looking at IT, looking at computer screens for 40 years, that's what happens. But actually, I can use that scroller to make my text bigger, to make my text smaller. I can add spacing in to make it a bit more legible. I can change the fonts if I need to, okay? But actually, some people struggle to read text in certain backgrounds. So I can actually just change the text, the color of the background. So now I've got a black background and white text. I've got a blue background and black text. Depends on how I read, actually, the efficiency. There's all sorts of things that show the efficiency of the ability to read. Education side, if you're not aware of this, you can turn nouns, verbs, all that text gets highlighted with different kind of key components of a structure. You've got syllables there, so generally, brilliant, fantastic for your kids. Even if you're not in the education sector, you wanted to do some reading at home, absolutely play with this. It's just really, really good stuff. Even shows us pictures, right? So if I don't know what a battle is and I click on it for younger children, fantastic, shows me what picture that is and can read the word. So some really, really clever stuff in there. We're going to do a whole education thing one day anyway, so that's great. But if you've got members of staff that have joined your organization that maybe don't speak English natively, you can actually just have the whole document translated into another language. Okay, so they can pick their language and they can read everything you said and translate the whole thing. But the key thing is it hasn't changed that original document. That's exactly the same. So when I come out of Immersive Reader, it's exactly the same way as it was. All the formatting's the same. It's just there as an accessibility benefit, okay, for people that are struggling to read small text, don't want to zoom in, and look at bits of the paragraph and have to scroll around. Very, very useful. And you'd be surprised how many people inside your organization may struggle with that. But actually giving them visibility of the immersive reader makes their life a little bit easier. Okay, so a great little feature in there that you may or may not be aware of. Versioning, really key thing actually, and something gets overlooked quite a bit. In the legal sector, we see it lots. In other sectors, not so much. But actually, every business tends to have policies, right? And how do we deal with versioning? Typically, what happens is people open up a document, they make some changes, and they go file save as, and they put the magic V2 on the end of it. And then when they make a change again, it becomes V3. And we end up with version 1, version 2, version 3. And all of these documents are taking up space, right? Now, they might not be massive, I acknowledge that. But actually, the whole idea of Microsoft 365 is to change the way we think about versioning. What we should actually be doing is editing the same document over and over. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's have a look at this document here. So we've got our Nelson piece again. If I click on File and I go to Info, I've got an option there for version history. Now, we've made a bunch of changes a moment ago. We put a table of contents in. We copied and pasted a load of bits and pieces down the bottom. But every change I've made has been tracked inside this document. Okay, so if I go to the very bottom one, you can see that it's modified by me at a time. And as I scroll down, there's no real changes in there. That was my original document, but our table of contents isn't there. The next version up includes the table of contents because I added that. That was a change that I made. If that was the wrong mistake, you can see at the top of the screen now I can hit restore and take the document back to how it was at the beginning. But importantly, I can also turn on show edits. And what happens here is all the things I changed get highlighted to me. So if they're red, then effectively been added in. They're green with a line through it, they've probably been moved or they've been removed. Okay. So every time I make a change, that is stored inside my document. So for compliance reasons, I don't need V1, V2, and V3 as all separate documents. All of those changes are being tracked for me dynamically. I don't need to turn track changes on. Okay, it just happens as long as my document is stored in SharePoint or OneDrive. Okay, as long as it's in the cloud. This is not going to work for documents stored on local file servers on your computer in your My Documents area. They're in your OneDrive, or they're in SharePoint, and versioning will work. And of course, this is great because actually it means that we don't have to keep sending 6 copies of documents via email and sending them around the office. Okay, we can always have just a copy of it. All right, our policy, the latest policy, is always in the same place. All right, we can't end up someone going, "Oh, I know where the policy is. It's in my email. Grab it," and it's 2 years out of date. What we want to be aiming to do is give people links to the same document and make the changes in a single document. So talking about that sharing idea, yeah. So we have a document. Again, everyone's guilty of doing it at some point. We grab a document and we paste it into an email, or we copy it and paste it into an email, and we send it to 3 other people. Maybe it's the latest policy. Let's continue down that theme. And what we end up with is, I've got a version. I attached it to an email and sent it to 3 other people. So we now have 4 copies of that policy around the office. Okay. What we then end up with is that person sends it on to another person. Now there's 5 copies of it in the office. Okay. 3, 6, 9 months down the road, we make a change to that. And a year later, someone says, "Where's the policy for so-and-so?" And of course, we search our emails and we pull out the policy documents incorrect. You know, elaborate on that. It's the same thing with all sorts of different documents. So what we're looking for here is, how do we get everybody, rather than them all having their own individual copy of a document, how do we drive them all back to the same place, to the one source of truth? Okay, and this is why sharing exists. If I want to share this document, what I do is I go to File, and we've got an option there called Share. So when I share it, and I appreciate lots of you probably know how to do this already, but this is for those of you that don't, I can type in members of my team or guests or people outside my organization, depending on permission, and invite them to come and edit my document stored in the cloud, stored in OneDrive. Okay, I can give them permissions. They can edit, or they can only view it, and actually they can't download it. That's really important, right? If you're sharing outside your organization, you want them to have a look at it, but you don't want to be able to copy it or download it or run away with it. We can also copy links, so I can just embed a link to the file in an email, and we've got lots of permissions in there around sharing with people who have access, guests, all sorts of things. Again, editing, viewing, not downloading. And when I hit send, what will happen is an email, in this case, will be sent off to Sam, and Sam will receive an email with a link in it. And when he clicks on that link, he will have access to that document. Okay, and he can make changes to it. And the key thing here is around collaboration. Hopefully many of you have seen the idea or aware of the fact that we can work on the same document at the same time. So Microsoft obviously do that. In fairness, Google probably invented it. There is an argument to say that, but Microsoft quickly adopted it. And it basically means at the top of a document, Sam could be up the top. They'll see a little red cursor with his initials in. Type it away in my document, and I can be down the bottom. We can both be working on it at the same time because I've given him permission to edit. If I only gave him permission to view, then he would only have access to view that document and not make changes to it. Okay, so, but the truth is that the key thing is he's not working on his copy of the file and me working on my copy of the file. And then at some point in the future, we have to then merge those 2 files back together again. We're both working collaboratively on the same thing. There's one source of truth, and that's the ideal way of doing it. If you're concerned about cost as well and storage, if that happens a lot, just think about the amount of storage you'll save when you're not duplicating the same file 100 times across your business. So another thing, mentions and comments. Again, some of you may be aware of that and how to use mentions already, but we will show you one way of using them at least. So we've got our document. Maybe I'm having a look through it, and I scroll down and I say, like, earlier life, Nelson joined the Navy, age 12 and 1770. Well, maybe I'm not quite sure about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that piece of text, and I'm going to insert a comment. And as part of that comment, I'm going to use a mention. So I'm going to go at Sam Smith. And I'm going to say, can you just go and check that that's right? Okay, can you confirm that? And make sure, I've got some concerns. And maybe I'm going to make lots of comments to this document, whatever. but I'm going to give other people tasks. I'm then going to assign it to Sam Smith. That becomes a task for him now, all right? He gets a notification. In fact, it goes into his to-dos, if you're aware of to-do in Microsoft 365. If not, we will cover that later. But Sam has now got a task, and the point of using a mention or an at someone's name is they get more notification about that point. They'll receive an email, they'll get a notification in Teams, it'll become part of an activity, it's a to-do item now. It will bubble up. They will receive a notification saying that Scott's asked you to do something. Okay, so, and he can then click on that email. It'll take him straight to this document, straight to that comment, and he can check the task that he's been assigned. Now, mentions spreads across everything across 365. We can use that in Teams, we can use that in Outlook, we can use that in all of the productivity tools that we're going to look at. Okay, so Word wrapped up. All right, a couple of little bits and pieces in Word. Hopefully, there's one or two new things in there that maybe you weren't aware of. We're going to go at pace, I'm afraid. So, but we're going to look at Outlook really, really quickly. We've got collaborating and generating auto replies and quick steps and some other bits and pieces that maybe you are and aren't aware of. So how about loop components? If you've heard of a loop component, brilliant, you're my best friend. But loop components is a fairly new thing as well. The idea of a loop component is that it allows us to create a dynamic bit of information in a fairly static, ordinary, boring way. All right? So an email has always been very static. If I wanted to have a conversation here with Sam about a list of tasks that we needed to do, if I did that over email, I'd send him a list. I'd send him one email with a list of tasks in. He'd send me an email back saying, I've done this and I've done this. I'd send him one back saying, what about those things? He'd send me one back saying, oh, I've done that, but I'm going to do that on Tuesday. And we end up in this sort of barrage of emails, and 20 emails in, I can't really work out where we are in terms of progress of this. So I can insert a loop component, all right? And I'm going to create a little list, a checklist, all right? Maybe we've got some agenda items from a meeting we had, so I'm going to paste them in. And to get Sam's attention, I'm going to remove his name and I'm going to go at Sam, all right, just to get his attention. So at Sam, brilliant. I need him to get the marketing order in, brilliant. And whilst he's doing that, I'm going to go and tidy the kitchen. And then Sam's going to set up the green screen, etc., etc. All right. And maybe we've got another task, though we don't know who's going to do that at the moment, but we do have a task of taking the bins out. The way this works is that that's now a dynamic piece of content. You can tell it's dynamic because it's got this sort of box around it. When I send that to Sam as an email, every time he goes back to that email, that dynamic content can change. So if he completes one of those tasks and he ticks it, when I look at the email or he looks at the email, that email will show a tick next to it. Okay, if in a week's time he does the next task and he ticks it and I go back to that email, it will show 2 ticks in it. It allows us to stop this barrage of emails backwards and forwards and actually just collaborate around a task, a document, whatever we need to do. We are not limited in loop components to just lists, all right? We can create all sorts of things in there, tables, anything that you can do within the productivity suite really can be embedded inside a loop component. And that means we're just cutting down on the noise in our Outlook, in our mailboxes, all right? Loop components also can be put into Teams, can be put into Word, can be put into PowerPoint, and all the other bits and pieces that we may use. So maybe we've got a Word document with a bunch of tasks with a loop component in there where we're working on stuff, all right? But those loop components spread out into all the other parts of Microsoft or Microsoft 365. So if you don't use them, give them a go. Just start playing with them. Scheduling polls. Okay, so how often do you get an email that says, hey, can we have a meeting? You go, right, yeah, fine, but it's 15 people involved. Like, when's everyone going to be free? Now, generally, we've got things like the scheduling assistant inside Outlook to go in and look at when everyone's free, and then you pick a time and you realize that somebody's actually got a meeting they didn't agree, and it doesn't really work all the time that well. So how about just asking them the question? All right, so I've got an email here from Sam. I'm picking on Sam a bit today. But hi, Scott, just a quick one. Can we schedule a meeting to discuss our marketing plans for Q3? No problem. Okay, so I'm going to reply to Sam and I'm going to say, yeah, no problem. Can we just vote on a time that suits everybody? We've got Louise involved in this as well. And I create a new scheduling poll in the ribbon. Here, I've got a date, a time, how long I think it's going to last, and a bunch of options when we're all free over the next couple of days. So I'm going to pick 3 options. So 5, 5:15, 5:30. I get more options in there as well, like when someone's actually selected kind of we've all agreed on a time frame. Do we just want it to automatically book us that meeting? No problem at all. We can do that. And I create that poll. Now what happens is I can send that email off to everybody, and they'll all receive the email. They click on schedule a poll, and it will come up with an option of the times that they're available. All right. So if I go to view all polls here, you'll see that there's a poll outstanding for this marketing catch up. And if I click on that, they all receive basically this view. They say 5 o'clock, 5:15, 5:30. Pick one, pick two, doesn't matter. Okay, ultimately, if everybody agrees that 5 o'clock's the right time to do it, it will automatically put the meeting and we'll just all be having a meeting at 5 o'clock. If everyone disagrees and there's no sort of consensus, then I have the ability to come in and go, oh, look, most people are free at 5:15, and I click on schedule meeting next to 5:15, and it books the meeting for us. Okay, so it takes the onus away from me to try and find a time where everyone's free, and it only takes a few minutes for everyone to go, yeah, I'm free here, I'm free here, I'm free here. Not very necessary if you're just meeting with one other person, obviously, but in large groups of people where you really don't know when people are free, it's quite a useful tool. Right, categorizing emails. So within this idea, again, some of you may or may not do this, but be aware that it exists at least. So we've got a bunch of emails. I get emails from, I've picked on recruiters, I'm afraid. So I've pulled a load of recruiter emails and bits and pieces into this mailbox for demonstration. But let's say I want to categorize my emails. I might have loads of different types of email that come in, some regarding the marketing department, some regarding our network operations center, our service desk, our sales team. And I want to bunch these emails up relevant to what they are. So I can create a category here, all right? So I'm going to add a new category. I'm going to say this is for urgent tasks, maybe, if I can spell there. Change the color of these urgent tasks, all right? Maybe they need to be green or red or whatever I'm going to end up with. And I go, okay. And you can see I've got lots of different categories in there now. When I click OK, the way I categorize an email is by right-clicking on it. So you can see this one's got a little red box next to it now. Now, it isn't quite the right thing, so I want to take that off. So I just toggle it off. So I click on it again, disappears. If I right-click on another email, I know that this is to do with a round table at Wembley Stadium. And I'll decide whether I want to do that or not. Or maybe that is an action to do. So I'm going to make it a certain color. Maybe these ones are all sort of emails from recruiters. Now, I don't want to just ignore it. I want to go back to that recruiter at least and say, hey, look, we don't use recruitment agencies, but thank you very much for your email. It's always important to be polite. So I'll get around to that when I'm ready and I've got a bit of time, but it's not that high on my agenda. The problem is now everything's sort of like a bit all over the place. I don't know what category of email I need to deal with at the moment. One of my options around that would be to actually use the sorting functionality. At the moment, this inbox is sorted by date, so the latest email is at the top, but I have the choice to click on that and actually change the order into lots of different things, one of which is categories. So now you can see all my emails are bunched up into different categories. I've got two that I've got no category against. I've got some around purchasing, I've got some to do with recruiting and some to-dos. Okay, brilliant. I've organized my mailbox, okay, based on a category. And as emails come in, I categorize them, and then I can go back to them on the at the right time, at the right schedule, and I don't miss stuff within my mailbox. Okay, so quite a useful thing. There's also the ability to sort by mentioned mail there. So that app mentioned is a key thing. You know, every time I get mentioned in something, it's going to bubble up. But of course, we've still got flags. I'm sure lots of you use flags. If you click the little flag icon on an email, it will turn it red. Once you've completed that task, it will put a tick next to it. And I can schedule these tasks to be completed today, tomorrow, next week, at some time that suits me. Another really key thing is that, again, when you flag an email, it goes into your to-dos. It becomes a task or an action for you to complete. And you will see on the left-hand side there, about halfway down, there's a little blue tick. If you click on that, you'll notice that's got all your flagged emails in it. And it's actually your tasks list, okay? So if you ever wonder where that went from the old version of Outlook, that's where it is now. So that ties into Microsoft 365, it ties into Planner, it ties into all these other tools that are within the 365 environment. Okay, so that's categories. What about rules? Okay, so maybe we want to create an automated rule. And again, I'm sure some of you have done this, but just for those of you that don't know where that is, we can go up to File, all right, and you've got an option there called Manage Rules and Alerts, and you can see that I can create a brand new rule. I get loads of options in this, all right? So we're just gonna do a silly example, but you can see that it's basically asking me, what do you want to do? When an email arrives or when you send an email, do you want something to happen automatically? So I'm going to, in this scenario, I'm going to apply a rule based on messages I received. And I'm going to say, only apply that rule if it's from certain individuals. All right. So in my case, I'm going to choose my boss. Maybe I want to keep my boss happy. All right. I need to respond to him whenever he replies to me. So I'm going to say, here's an email, anything that I get from Darren. What I'd like to do here is make a choice. So from Darren, now it's, what do you want to do? So do you want to move it? Do you want to delete it? Probably not a good idea. Do you want to print it off? Do you want it to play a sound on your computer so you know it's urgent? Maybe what I want to do is just have the server reply for me and get a response back to Darren as quickly as possible. Okay. So here I'm going to choose have the server reply using the message. I'm going to bring up a blank draft. So I'm going to type Darren's name in there. Fantastic. And I'm going to go, I'm on it. All right. I'm all over it, let's say. So ultimately, that means whenever Darren emails me, instantly he's going to get an email back again saying, I'm all over it. I'm sorted now. You think I'm great, right? If only that were true. So, so if we continue down here, that's great. But actually now I need some exceptions to that rule. So if I'm CC'd into the email, it's probably not for my attention. So he doesn't want an email back saying I'm all over it if it's got nothing to do with it. Right? I can also use this to tidy up my mailbox, right? If I want to just run that on everything that I've got in my mailbox, so maybe I want to delete all emails from a particular person, from a particular domain, anything like that. I can create a rule and run it in my inbox to purge all the emails from a particular individual, particular business, and tidy my mailbox up if I require it. Okay, once I'm happy with that, I press OK, I hit apply. And from that point forward, every time Darren emails me, he's going to get an instant response saying I'm on it. Now, I recommend you probably don't use that in real life, but you get the idea behind some of the power of what you can do. You may, eagle-eyed amongst you, may have spotted things in there like send an alert to my phone and kind of create notifications within the environment, create tasks, create to-dos, all of that stuff, again, ties back into Microsoft 365 as a platform. Now, maybe a new one for some of you, a quick step, okay? I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but a quick step is basically a button that I can click to automate something and make it happen quickly. So I mentioned earlier, I get lots of emails from recruiters and I want to be able to reply to them and send them a message back saying, look, great, thank you for your time, but we don't use recruitment agencies. So what I can do is I can go in quick steps, I can create a new quick step, and I'm going to create a custom one in this scenario, right? I'm going to give it a name. The point here is to reduce the amount of time that I spend typing replies out. Okay, so I'm going to go reply to recruiter. All right, I'm going to choose an action. First thing I'm going to do, sorry recruiters, I'm going to delete that message. Okay, the second thing that I'm going to do, I need to add an action now, is to say, actually, I want to send a nice reply back then. All right, I'm not that evil. I want to be able to go back to them and say, look, thank you for your email, but as a heads up, we don't use recruitment companies. So maybe I'll type something nice in as a reply. Something along the lines of, thank you for your email. Unfortunately, we have our own recruitment team, but feel free to contact them at recruitment team. Okay, so they're now going to get an email back saying, look, thanks for your email, but I'm not interested. Hopefully, that drives down the number of emails that we get around the area. When I click finish, that's done. Now, what I can do, I've got Max selected there. If I click quick steps, you can see it says reply to recruiter. And if I click that, you'll see that Max's email gets deleted and it has just sent an email back to Max. Okay, so thank you very much, but we don't use recruitment companies. That's great when it's just, if you think about what that tiny little task did, it just saved me 20 minutes, 40 minutes every day replying to people saying the same message over and over and over again, right? If, let's say I'm in a meeting, all right, I'm sat in a meeting, I'm busy, I'm not 100% engaged with the meeting, I've probably got my eye on my email as well at some point, and someone messages me quite urgently, I could create a quick step that says, hi, no worries, I'm in a meeting, I'll get into, I'll jump on this, I'll speak to you, I'll get hold of you as soon as I'm out of my meeting, all right? That's so much better to click on an email, hit quick steps and send, I'll be out soon, whatever you want to call it, than it is to break your attention away from the meeting and sit there and write an email. At least that individual on the other end of the conversation that sent you it knows you're in a meeting, understands that you will get hold of them, you've acknowledged their existence, you've acknowledged the existence of the email. They're not sitting around going, oh God, I don't know what's going on. So, but you haven't broken attention, it's taking you 1 second. So quick steps is really, really powerful. Encourage you to go and give that a go. Right, let's shift our attention to Teams. and some of the things we can do inside Teams. So we know that we use Teams for video conferencing. And by the way, we are scratching the surface here, all right? So many things we can do inside Teams. We need to cover lots more bits and pieces, and we'll do that in the upcoming webinars as well. But let's start in a meeting, okay? We've got a marketing meeting between Sam and myself, where we need to have a little chat about today's setup, okay? So first thing to do, you don't have to always schedule a Teams meeting, right? Just jump in a meeting, join now, and go to people, add participants, and you can just dial people into Teams calls, all right? So I'm sure many of you are aware of that now. But this is now calling Sam. Sam's going to jump on in a moment, and the elusive sidekick, you finally get to see what he looks like. There he is, Mr. Smith himself. So we're going to go away and have a chat, okay, and off we go. Now, one of the things you might not be aware of is recording and transcribing. So I've said to Sam, look, we've got some actions on this meeting. We've got some things we need to talk about, but the chances are I'm going to forget this in 2 hours' time. So do you mind if we record it and then I can reference it a bit later on? So Sam says, of course, no problem at all. So I've now turned on recording and transcribing. What's happening here is everything that we're talking about in this conversation is being tracked and recorded by Teams in the background. Great news is I can go and reference this later. Really useful to use sometimes with some of your customers, okay, to understand what was agreed in the meeting, what they've asked for, to be able to understand, make sure that your teams within your organization understand what your customers' expectations are. So occasionally, if you're on a meeting with me and I ask you to record it, you understand why. But you can see lots of conversation going on here. Now, we're talking there about the layout of the room. Okay, I don't understand where the layout of the room is. We've got some new funky lights. We're in quite a bright room here, hence why I'm squinting. Awful video of me, but never mind. So what we do is we quickly draw a picture. I say quickly, not quite that quickly, but we use whiteboard. So if you go share, underneath share, you can typically share your screen. You can share an application you've got open. There's also something there called whiteboard. And that's a collaborative whiteboard that everybody on the call can draw all over and brainstorm with. It's got funky tools like rulers here, as you can see. You can zoom in and out. You can rotate that ruler around. So you can draw nice square edges, whatever you want to do. There's loads of templates in whiteboard as well. What we're looking to achieve here is a quick drawing of that room. And then I want Sam to explain some bits and pieces to me. My concern was, well, where are we standing in the room? Because there's a load of light coming in, and actually I'm squinting sat here as it is. So we have a conversation about turning the blinds down and et cetera, et cetera. So there's the door. There's these banners that are behind me now. Okay, get a little bit of visualization where we are. There's a camera. That's where I'm standing right now. And this is the field of view maybe of the camera, okay? So Sam says, yeah, that's about right. But actually, if you want to, we can flip the room around. So now I'm not moving the mouse now, okay? Sam's now getting involved. And you can see there's an arrow appearing down the bottom. Where did that come from? I didn't draw that. That's Sam now collaborating with me. We're both drawing the same picture. We're both brainstorming the same concept. You can see our conversation carrying on in the right-hand side. We're asking you about the light. So he's got the highlighter pen out. So, well, this is where the light's going to come in from. All marketing magic, in my opinion. Okay, so above my pay grade, I don't get it. So, but he's explaining it all to me. Why we need to have the lights where they are, where the lights coming externally, and off we go. All right, and I'm just making sure we've got everything planned as is. So a really great collaboration tool. If you don't know about whiteboard, it's brilliant. It's worth saying as well that the whiteboard is infinite in size. So actually, Sam can be working on the whiteboard off my screen right now. I can be drawing some ideas over here, and then we can zoom out and we can kind of chat about our two things. If you if you're in a big call and maybe everyone's going to have to brainstorm some ideas, there's an option of follow me, which you'll see in the top right corner, which means somebody in the call can say follow me, and everybody else in the call focuses in on where they're looking at on the whiteboard. Okay, remember it's infinite in size. So everybody gets focused in on maybe what Sam's looking at, and then I can grab it and everyone comes over to the thing that I've drawn on the whiteboard, and I can explain my thoughts and my reasoning behind it, and then maybe we can collaboratively work together. So lots of other things that you can do inside Teams in terms of adding other add-ins in and other apps and bits and pieces, raising hands, changing the view that you have within it. So everyone's sat in a big line or in an auditorium. We'll show you some of that stuff in future webinars. breakout rooms, bits and pieces like that. If any of that interests you, let us know. The next thing to say is we made that recording. So when I record a video, where does it go? All right, when I hit record, how do I get to it? Well, the truth is it goes into something called Stream, and that's within Microsoft 365. If you go up to the little waffle in the corner, you'll see that there's an option there for Stream. If you click on Stream, you'll be presented with this screen, and you'll see that there's my latest video. Okay, there's our meeting recording. Awful photo, awful video of me, but never mind. We can all have a laugh. That's fine. So, but here's my transcript. There's everything we talked about in that meeting. That's how I can go back and read it and understand where it is. But I know there was a piece in that meeting where we talked about the room. Now, if I search for room, it now jumps me to every point that we talked about a certain thing in our meeting. So, and when I click on that part of the transcript, the video skips to the part we talked about. So if I'm in a really big meeting, I've been involved in for an hour, maybe I've missed the meeting, I don't know, but maybe I'm only really interested in a sub part of it, then I can go into Stream, search for that particular part of the meeting by using a keyword, and then it will skip me to that part of the meeting and I can watch that part of the meeting. Okay, really, really powerful stuff. And I've also got a transcript of everything that's been said. Now, you'll be aware, for those of you that watch some of my Copilot videos, if you go out and start to invest into Copilot, this goes even further, okay, to the point that it starts to understand agendas, it starts to understand sentiment, it understands that there's frustration maybe between people having a conversation, it can bubble that stuff up to senior managers, it can create actions, it can minute your meetings, lots of amazing things. But at a very basic level, even without Copilot, I have the ability there to go and search within meetings, and if I do a search across 365, this sort of information starts to bubble back to me. So Stream, very, very powerful. If you don't record your meetings, then great. Obviously, then I encourage you to, I should say. But I appreciate not everyone's getting recorded. So what about channels? Okay, what are channels? All right, we know what teams are, we think. If you use Teams already, then you know that you can create a team and you can put a bunch of people inside that team and they can all collaborate. But underneath that team, you have all these kind of other options. You have these things that exist underneath it. So here, that's how I create a team. But if I click on the little dots next to it, I can add something called a channel. It's like a sub team, if that makes sense, right? I mean, this gets confusing, but a channel, the idea really is maybe that's the project. Maybe that's something that the team are working on independent of being a team. So maybe it's a task, a project, something that's happening. So I can create a channel, and in this scenario, I'm going to create a channel, topical mental health week next week. So we're creating a channel around mental health. I want the people in this team to have visibility of maybe some documents and some resources around mental health. So I can now say, right, well, I've got a post area, people can chat in there. I've got a files area dedicated to this channel. Great way of segmenting my data out. And I can upload documents into that, maybe some resources, maybe some content around mental health. Maybe I want to create some documents, some Word documents, etc., etc. But the bit I really want to show you is about tabs. Okay, so if you're not aware of tabs, really, really powerful. You can embed all sorts of things inside a channel or inside a team. You can see there's lots of different services in there: Planner, OneNote, Stream, maybe one of the videos we've recorded, SharePoint sites, Excel pages, Word documents, and loads of third-party add-ins as well. So you've got workflows, you've got all sorts of things that third-party providers can provide. In this scenario, I've selected a website because I want to be able to embed the Mental Health UK website in this channel so that people don't have to go off and Google it and find it and muck around trying to get to some content that's important to them. So I add a website, I paste the URL into the website that I'm looking to share. I give this tab a name, so Mental Health UK, and I hit save. And what we end up with is embedded within our channel, or embedded within our team. I now have a tab that just takes me straight to the website. That website is now embedded inside our team. Great news. Okay, very, very useful, and a great way of keeping data together. So you've done really, really well. So thank you very much for skipping through and plowing on and holding out, even though the sun's out there. We're going to keep doing these videos, all right? Lots and lots of little kind of tips and tricks and bits and pieces that you may or may not know about some of the Microsoft productivity tools. We'll be talking about some of the educational stuff and industry-specific bits. And what I would like to encourage you to go and do is have a look. If you're interested in using Microsoft 365 and want to know more about some of these tips and tricks and things that you can do and how all things work together, maybe you want to go further than I've gone today. You want to look at Excel and bits and pieces. Go and have a look at the online training available at Microsoft. And again, we'll share all these slides with everybody anyway, or the recording at least. But also bear in mind that you can always come to us. Okay, so come and speak to us. Happy to show you some of this stuff. Happy to advise you. If you are a business care customer, a tailor-made business care customer, remember that when you log into our portal, there's loads of training resources in there on how to use Office, how to use Word, Outlook, bits and pieces. We're going to try and put these videos up there for you as well, so you can go back and review that. But that's a key component of some of the services that we deliver. Okay, so use those tools. If you're not aware they're there, go and log in the portal, click on training. There's a whole wealth of training, not just around Microsoft, but around all sorts of applications that you can use to widen your understanding of how to use it and become more productive. And ultimately, there's always Copilot, right? If you don't know how to do something, go and ask Copilot. If you've got Copilot inside Word, brilliant. Go and ask Copilot. It will tell you. Say, how do I do a scheduling poll? It will tell you how to do it, okay? If you haven't got Copilot, go and open up Microsoft Edge and click on a Copilot logo in the top right corner and ask it the same question, right? And say, in Microsoft Word, how do I send a, or sorry, in Microsoft Outlook, how do I create a scheduling poll? And it will give you a kind of answer how to do it. So make use of the tools that you've got available to you, okay? So look, we've gone through that. We've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to leave enough time for any questions and bits and pieces. Appreciate we went through that really, really quickly. I appreciate there's probably lots of things that that would be lovely to see. If you want to understand how to do things, we really encourage you to feed back to us. I will jump up here as regularly as I possibly can and show you how to do some of this stuff within the platform. But if there are any questions, I invite you to ask away. And if there aren't any questions, you're welcome to go and jump in the sun, okay, and take a look and see where you end up. All right, let's go and have a little look. Where are we at? Perfect. Oh, great, Russell. I'm just reading your message about your kids' school using their weekly newsletter. As I say, it's brilliant. So a lot of these tools, these sort of fun, engaging tools, are being used within the education sector brilliantly. But actually, let's think about as well. You know, not only fantastic in there. Teams is completely different in the education sector. We can measure how well they read. We can get analytics. We can get all sorts of things. We're going to do a kind of special thing about that anyway. But actually, Sway is fantastic for sending that out. So, and you can see how easy it is to create. Yeah, so within Microsoft Teams, so someone's asked a question, any tips on creating shortcuts and links to the folders in Microsoft Teams? So it's really easy to do in Teams. You can create a kind of like almost what we call symbolic links within Teams to other SharePoint locations. If you're looking for links actually on your desktop, I'm going to get a little bit technical, but you can connect to SharePoint using technology like WebDAV. So you have to put various permissions in the background. There are third-party products that will allow you to map drives directly into SharePoint. So if you're used to using the T drive or the P drive or S drive or whatever you use, that's where your documents are. There are third-party tools that will allow you to effectively map a team site to an S drive, and you can engage with it. Okay, those tools have probably got a limited lifespan before Microsoft disabled some of that functionality, in all honesty, but we think that's probably a long way off at the moment. Right, but best thing to do is encourage your staff to start to use the platform as is, use the OneDrive client, bits and pieces like that. So looking at my version, I don't have a loop. Is this a licensing issue? Probably not. It's probably an update issue. I'm not sure. So so Sarah, we'll have to have a look and see what that is. It might just require an update. It's a good question. I don't think it's a licensing issue. So so it should be available pretty much everywhere. But just check your Office updates and make sure that they're all correct. Any more questions? If not, I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody. And I'm going to let you go and get in that wonderful sun. Thank you very much indeed. I'll see you all later on. Take care.